The bad creative. The bad creative. Yeah. Welcome. I am Alexa Van, and this is the Bad Creatives Show. The Bad Creatives Podcast Show? I don't know. I'm still working it out. Welcome back. You did it. You made it back. Me too. Good for me. Today I wanted to talk about something that is basically stop explaining yourself to people who will never hear you. What do I mean by that? Okay, well, as a person who is autistic and weird and different and an artist, I have some serious trauma around being chronically misunderstood. I was thinking, after being really exhausted by a conversation last night, wow, what would it be like if I just didn't care if people understood me? How freeing would that feel if I just let other people not understand me? What would that be like if I just didn't care how I was received? And interestingly, I do that in some ways naturally, but there is still, in my close relationships, this deep desire to be understood. Understandably so. And because I value understanding other people, I believe that if I just explain this clearly enough, then they'll understand me because I'm assuming that they want to, and I'm assuming that they can. And I don't know if can and want is connected at all. I don't know, truthfully, if people can do the things we think that they can. Maybe that's one of those things where we see somebody's potential and we believe that that's their truth instead of what they show us every day. We see a deep down version of a person, or we believe somebody's capable of something, and so we just keep acting in a certain way, waiting for them to step up to that. Or maybe they've done it before and it's somewhat inconsistent, and we think like, well, if I'm perfect enough, then they'll be able to access that. I may have been operating in that realm more than I've realized. In close relationships with people, I found myself feeling deeply driven to understand why I was the way that I was, because I felt that if you understand something, then perhaps you know how to apply that information. What I didn't realize is that not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to take responsibility for something. And so when you live in a perpetual state of confusion and not understanding, then you don't really have to step up. I was watching this video last night, just coincidentally. I was looking for something else. But it was Carl Jung talks about how when we choose not to participate in performance, we can be free to have emotional authority over ourselves. When we disengage from that game or that mask of let me do what I think I'm supposed to do to get the reaction that I want, it's this very societally acceptable way of interacting with other people in the world. On a surface level, I think it's very problematic and I have a really hard time with it. And that has been something that jobs don't love about me. But I have a mask. I can mask. It's easier sometimes than being my natural self. However, it's exhausting. In my romantic relationships, I try to unmask and I try to explain why I am the way that I am in the hopes that somebody will receive that, respect that, and make space for that. What I'm finding is that's actually not always the case. Wah wah. What I want to experiment with is what happens when you just stop explaining yourself. What happens to the connection then? I think that comes with a deep sense of knowing no matter how perfectly I say this, the people who don't want to hear me will never hear me. And as long as I keep stretching to go meet them where they're at, I'm exhausting myself and feeling crazy for what? I don't know why people don't want to understand each other. I think that it comes from conflict being that somebody's winning and losing. More value in debating and being right and being smarter than somebody else, being superior, instead of connection with another human being. So obviously this is probably the worst when you're in a fight with somebody that you're dating or a friend, a close friend, and you're not making space to see them where they're at because you're maybe more focused on wanting to win. Because if you were to understand somebody and see where they were at, then you have to lean into them a little bit. And that maybe doesn't feel safe. Some people just are not interested in having a connection like that. They really want you to just keep going to meet them, and they don't want to meet you where you are. Now, it's easy to tell if you're talking to somebody who has no interest in understanding you in a conversation or a conflict, because they will often focus more on the exact words you're saying or the exact way that you're saying it. They'll be like really zeroed in on how you didn't say something perfectly instead of focusing on the bigger meaning behind what you're saying, the deeper meaning behind what you're saying. They're not really trying to be like, well, it sounds like what you're saying is blank. Instead, they'll be like more focused on perhaps you used the wrong word to say something. I mean, that's like an entirely different thing. This is me talking about here I am explaining something to somebody from my point of view, from my experience, and genuinely trying to think, how can I say this in a way where they'll be able to step into my world? Even if they do eventually get it, you're exhausted at the end of it. The fact that they don't value understanding you means that this is going to happen again. So what happens if you just don't do it? Perhaps that's where I'm going to find my own freedom. And so I want to try doing this. The more that we choose not to participate in accidentally giving away our reactions, the better we are at controlling our own emotional sovereignty, the less prone we're going to be to manipulation, the more we're going to see who somebody really is. Because now, if we don't take the bait, then the rest will unfold. When your reactions are predictable, then you can be controlled because somebody knows exactly what to do to get a rise out of you. So a mistake that I have made is in relationships with men. I get very absorbed in my work, in something I'm creating, in a project that means a lot to me. Whether I'm in the same vicinity as them or not, I've noticed this pattern where men will do something, say something, criticize me in a way where I want them to understand why what I'm doing is important and to value it the way I value it. I try to explain to them that I need some space and some boundaries. However, I react emotionally to whatever criticism they said. You don't text me enough. You don't call me enough. You're thinking about something else. Even though I'm there to work on that, they want my attention and they're not getting it. Now the attention is back on them. Even though it's like negative attention, this isn't a deep connection. This is me taking the focus off what I'm doing and putting it onto them. Maybe that makes them feel validated because now they have my attention again and they know that they have that power over me. I really hate that I fall for that. I work in the service industry and it's so exaggerated there. If you don't smile at somebody, it's all of a sudden your fault that they feel a certain way, instead of them owning the fact that your emotions are your own responsibility. Why are you letting the shape of my face dictate how you feel right now? How much sense does that make? This is the pattern I fall into. What happens is we get stuck in these spirals of trying to explain ourselves. And for somebody like me who does feel chronically misunderstood, it actually makes me feel even harder to understand. And then you meet those other people where it's like you don't even have to say it. They just get it. I have a girlfriend who, oh my God, when we met, it was just like getting into a pool on a hot summer day. I was just like, oh man, you feel just right. All these things we've always censored ourselves around other people. She'd say it and I'm like, we just get each other. Not saying that we can't understand people who are different than us. That's always going to be a little bit harder. Are you trying to meet them where they're at? Or are you just trying to prove that they're wrong? If you need to be so in command of the reality of the world that you don't have the emotional dexterity to understand somebody else's experience may be different than your own, you must be so boring, first of all. And second of all, what is that? 100% ego, because you need to be right instead of seeing it as maybe how this person experiences the world is totally different. Maybe there's actually space for both of them to have some truth to it. When we are connected with our deepest truth, there's really nothing about it to argue. When my goal is simply to be heard and to express myself, what is there to argue with? All I'm asking is for the space for me to have my own experience. And that is where I've noticed relationships getting really tripped up. They're not interested in allowing there to be space for that. A lot of that comes from emotional immaturity and feeling unsafe. They need to see the world a certain way. And if they open their mind, then there's all this other stuff that they're going to have to take responsibility for. Their actions may have had an impact that they didn't realize. It's rooted in protecting themselves instead of connecting with another person. I can have compassion for that because some people maybe feel like they need to from their own past stuff. But at the same time, what if I just said, okay, well, I don't want to participate in that? What ends up happening is usually the connection fades away. If I'm believing that I can explain it well enough that I'll finally get them on board, then I don't have to really look at the fact that this connection is not going anywhere, that we're not compatible, and that I need to step away. It's a lot easier to do that in connections with people that aren't as of high value in our life. So when I go to work, if I'm talking to a person and they don't get me, I don't really care. I'm probably never going to see them again. They have no power over my reaction. And sometimes I can see that they want to, or perhaps are instigating that. I've done it enough now where I don't pick it up unless I really feel like this could be an interesting conversation. So then it gives me the choice. I'm not doing it unknowingly. I'm not accidentally giving all of my energy over. It's very different. When you have choice, you can stop, you can step away. It's easier to take your own temperature. And anyway, if you're a person living in the world, especially a creative person, an artist, maybe you're a little weird, maybe you're a little whatever. Not everybody's going to get that. You're doing something your own way. You'd be surprised how many people have a problem with that. Apparently, I'm a bitch and I'm evil. I don't know. Riveting, groundbreaking, trying to understand it through their filter of insecurity. If you're a person who wants to have community and you want to have relationships and you want to build a life with other people and you expect everybody else to meet you where you're at without ever moving towards them, you might want to look at that. How free would it be if I trusted that if somebody really cared, that they would try to move towards me, they would do their own research, even if they don't fully get it? And how much more time and energy would I have to put into my work and into my art? I mean, there's just no way people like Albert Einstein or these like weird, creative, interesting minds, there's no way everybody understood them. There's no way people got why they did what they did. And what if they cared? What if they really cared how they were received and they needed validation? There's no way that they would have been free enough to go do what they did. Not in a million years. So if you're a creative person, if you feel a little weird and you're afraid of being misunderstood, just let yourself be misunderstood. Go, okay, I don't need to explain that. I know that's sad because you may think that you're the only one bridging the gap between you and the other person. But if that's the truth, then that's just not a connection that's sustainable. And it will always take from you, from what you could be putting into yourself and in your work and your art. We often learn through conflict. So I'm not trying to say that there's anything right or wrong through feeling like sometimes we're beating our head up against the wall. But at some point, you've got to say, okay, well, this isn't working. I'm stretching so hard. I'm doing so much emotional labor to meet this person where they're at. And they're not attempting to come to me. Just stop and watch. They're going to try to do something to get, I kind of get it. Come back. Keep acting the way you've been acting because I like that. Or they'll be like, oh no, I need to step it up. I need to move towards this person because I value this connection. Or they will simply just fade away, which happens more often than not. I've come to this place in relationships where I surrender. And then I put all that attention back on myself and what I'm doing, and I start to flourish, and the relationship ceases to exist. It's sad, but if I can only have one or the other, I'm choosing myself because I think a real relationship would be supportive and would allow me to have the space to be myself and to do the things that I want to do. We really shouldn't have to be proving anything in a healthy relationship dynamic anyway. I mean, there should be curiosity and trust. I'm going to do my thing. This is what makes sense to me, and I don't need you to get it. I get labeled narcissist, mean, rude, sociopath, you name it, dude, whatever. And then I'm like, but I'm not that. And I'm trying to even prove it to myself. And finally, I was like, whatever. When we label somebody as a narcissist, it completely absolves the other person of any responsibility. I'm not saying those kinds of dynamics don't exist. I have known true narcissists in my life. It's very intense and scary. I would say an average relationship dynamic, if everybody is a narcissist in the whole world, then you didn't never do anything wrong because they were horrible. You get to be a victim and you never really have to look at yourself. I write about that in Breakfast at Sassy's. This girl is a horrible alcoholic, yet this guy pursues her. And he never has to look at himself. She's forever the scapegoat for bad behavior because it's her fault. Everything, she's so crazy. He never changes himself. There's never any question of why did you date somebody who was so far gone? What does that really say about you? That you don't want to take any responsibility for yourself or your life, and instead you found a distraction and somebody to blame for everything. You get to forever be in control of the narrative. that you're this good guy and you could just keep convincing yourself that. But that's the thing with this good guy, bad guy narrative, there's so much more nuance in that. Forcing ourselves to see the world a certain way, we close ourselves off from any other possibility. And what a boring way to live. I think that this is why creative people are leaders. We're not afraid to see the full picture. We're not afraid to have a different perspective. We're not afraid to look at everything and say the thing that everybody else won't say. We're not afraid to go out and live life and have weird and crazy experiences because we want to feel inspired and we want to live. You can't create from a little box. If you're in a little box of safety, there's no way your work is not suffering. What if we did liberate ourselves from being easy to digest? Sounds nice, but I will have to stop trying to over-explain myself to people who really don't give a shit, who maybe seem like good people but aren't ready to understand things that challenges their narrative. Creative people often evoke an emotional response in those who are awake enough to hear it. That's a gift. It also means we have to be able to feel it. That's why, for me anyway, I've been so interested in why people do the things they do and what motivates us and what else is out there in the whole wide world. Even if it hurts and even if it's scary, I'm down for the ride, for the adventure. I'm not interested in a moral hierarchy. With opening your mind, is that terrifying to you? What image are you trying to protect? And what are you even protecting yourself from? Rejection? You're not even really being rejected because you're acting like a fake version of yourself. I value authenticity and I make other people very uncomfortable because of that. People who don't like being vulnerable have a hard time being around me. They feel challenged even though I'm just sitting there doing nothing, and they start trying to label my behavior like, oh, are you mad? Are you miserable? And I'm just like, I'm literally just sitting here not saying anything. If I don't bend over backwards to do what everybody expects me to do, and I'm keeping my energy for what is important to me, then it creates this ripple effect. Even a smile. People are really expectant of a smile, even if you're not happy. I don't really get that. They decide what it means if you don't. You're not participating, you're not playing, you're not safe. You must be mean. Instead of, what if we just smiled when we were happy and a smile got to be exactly what it really was? Is a fucking idea. Can we just be? Can we just exist? The bad creatives, yeah. The bad creatives, the bad